King Declan Nightshade threw the 100th execution order across his desk when a crumpled, crayon-stained envelope slid beneath his chamber door, addressed simply to the mean king, in a child's shaky handwriting. He stared at it. In 5 years, no one had dared approach his private chambers uninvited. His guards knew better. Everyone knew better. The envelope sat there, wrinkled and small, decorated with crooked stars drawn in purple crayon. Declan's wolf stirred for the first time in months. He told it to shut up. He should burn the thing. He had 3 execution orders to sign before dawn, a council meeting about the Silverpaw rebels, and a headache that felt like someone was driving iron spikes through his skull. He didn't have time for whatever this was. But his hand reached for it anyway. The paper was cheap, the kind they sold at the village market for a few coppers. When he opened it, a drawing fell out, a stick figure with a crown, smiling. Actually smiling, with a big red crayon curve that took up half the face. Next to it stood a smaller figure holding the king's hand. The letter was written in that painful way children formed words, each letter a small battle. Dear mean king. My mama says you're not really mean, just sad. She says sad people get angry sometimes. I get angry when I'm sad too. I drew you a picture of you being happy again. Mama says you forgot how. Please don't be so angry anymore. It must hurt. Love, Mira. P.S. I'm 6.5. Mama says that's old enough to write letters. Something twisted in Declan's chest, something he'd thought he'd killed years ago. He crumpled the letter in his fist, then smoothed it out again, hating himself for both actions. A child. Some pup had written to him. Why the hell would? His office door opened without warning. His beta, Marcus, stood there looking like death itself. The Silverpaw prisoner tried to escape, Marcus said flatly. We stopped her. She was trying to reach the mail carrier. Said she needed to intercept a letter. Declan's blood went cold. What prisoner? Sarah Silverpaw. The poet. The one who. I know who she is. Declan cut him off. He looked down at the letter. At the name signed at the bottom. Mira. She has a daughter, he said slowly. Marcus nodded. 6 years old. Omega pup. Been staying with her grandmother in Millbrook since we arrested Sarah 3 months ago. 3 months. This woman had been rotting in his dungeons for 3 months, and he hadn't known she had a child. Hadn't cared to know. His wolf snarled. Declan shoved it down harder. Bring me her file, he said. All of it. Marcus hesitated. Sir, her execution is scheduled for dawn. In 7 hours. Did I stutter? Marcus left. Declan read the letter again. And again. Please don't be so angry anymore. He wanted to laugh. Or break something. Maybe both. Sarah Silverpaw. He knew the name. Everyone in the Northern Territories knew the name. She'd written poetry, actual God's-damned poetry. That had spread through the packs like wildfire. Words about freedom, about the old ways, about kings who'd forgotten they were supposed to protect their people, not just rule them. Sedition. Treason. Rebellion wrapped up in pretty verses that made young wolves bare their throats to executioners while smiling. 43 wolves had died in the Silverpaw uprising. 43 lives ended because one Omega couldn't keep her thoughts to herself. He should hate her. He did hate her. But her daughter had drawn him smiling. Marcus returned with a thin folder. Too thin for someone accused of starting a rebellion. Declan flipped it open. The photograph showed a woman with dark hair and darker eyes, head held high even in her prison uniform. She was beautiful in that fierce way Omega wolves sometimes were, the kind of beauty that made alphas stupid. He wasn't stupid. Not anymore. Age 27, he read aloud. Widowed 4 years. Omega. No criminal record prior to this year. Worked as a teacher before, he stopped. She was a teacher. Elementary level, Marcus confirmed. Reading and writing. Her daughter was in her class before the arrest. Declan's jaw clenched. What else? She's refused to name her co-conspirators. Been questioned extensively. Marcus's tone made it clear what extensively meant. Never broke. Not once. Stubborn Omega. Declan hated those most of all. The ones who thought their convictions meant something. The ones who. His hand froze on the last page of the file. A pressed flower fell out. Dried, purple, distinctive. Wolfsbane. His vision went white at the edges. His claws extended before he could stop them, shredding the folder. Get out, he whispered. Sir. Get out. Marcus fled. Smart man. Declan stared at the flower. Then at the one that had fallen from Myra's letter. Identical. Both pressed the same way, with the stem bent just so. His mate, his dead mate, Elena, used to leave him wolfsbane flowers. A private joke between them, since wolfsbane was poisonous to their kind. I'm your poison, she'd whisper. But you can't resist me. Then she tried to poison him for real. Conspired with his enemies. Planned his assassination. All while smiling that beautiful smile and leaving flowers on his pillow. He'd executed her himself 5 years ago. And he'd told himself he'd never be weak again. No one knew about the flowers. No one. Elena had been clever, their courtship had been public, but that little ritual had been theirs alone. So how the hell did Sarah Silverpaw know? And why had she told her daughter to include one in a letter to him? Declan stood so fast his chair crashed backward. He was moving before he'd made the decision, his wolf rising with a fury that matched his own. The dungeons were cold and dark and smelled like despair. Perfect. Sarah Silverpaw's cell was at the end of the corridor. She sat against the stone wall, knees drawn up, head tilted back. There was a fresh bruise on her jaw. Probably from the escape attempt. She didn't look up when he approached. Didn't even flinch. Your daughter writes a lovely letter, Declan said softly. Now she moved. Her head snapped toward him, eyes wide. Fear, finally, fear, flickered across her face. You didn't, she breathed. Tell me you didn't hurt her. Tell me. I haven't touched your pup. He held up the letter, watching her expression crumble with relief, then harden again. But I want to know how she knew to include this. He held up the wolfsbane flower. Sarah's face went blank. Too blank. That was training, he realized. Someone had taught her how to school her features. It's just a flower, she said. Mira picks them sometimes. She thinks they're pretty. Liar. I'm scheduled to die in 6 hours. What does it matter? It matters, Declan snarled, because no one alive knows about these flowers except me. And now you're going to tell me how you know, or I'll make these last 6 hours very, very long. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And damned if he didn't see pity in those dark eyes. Elena told me, Sarah said quietly. The world stopped. That's impossible. You never met her. She's been dead for 5 years, 7 months, and 11 days, Sarah finished. I know. I was there. Declan's blood turned to ice. Where? The execution. Sarah's voice was steady now, calm. Eerily calm. I was in the crowd. I was 19. I watched you kill your mate in front of everyone. Watched you break the bond. Watched you stop feeling. She stood slowly, chains rattling, and walked toward the bars. But before that, 3 weeks before, Elena came to Millbrook. She found me. She knew she was going to die, and she had a message. No. Declan's voice was raw. No, this is some kind of trick. Some manipulation. She said to tell you the flowers were never a joke. Sarah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. She said they were a promise. That even poison could be beautiful if you loved it enough. And she said. Sarah's voice broke. She said she was sorry. That she'd failed you. But that someone else would come who wouldn't. Someone who'd see past the anger to the man who still pressed flowers like a lovesick boy. Declan couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. She made me promise, Sarah whispered. Made me swear on my own mate's grave that if I ever had a chance, any chance, to reach you, I'd remind you. She said you'd need it someday. She said you'd forget how to be anything but angry. The letter. The drawing. The flower. My mama says you're not really mean, just sad. You sent your daughter, Declan said numbly. You used your own child to save her life. Sarah's voice turned fierce. You think I want to die? You think I want to leave Mira alone? But you were going to execute me without a second thought. You've been executing everyone without a second thought. So yes, I taught my 6-year-old daughter to write a letter to a king who kills without mercy, and I prayed. I prayed that maybe somewhere inside you, there was still enough humanity left to pause. Just for a moment. Just long enough to ask why. Why? Declan's laugh was bitter. You started a rebellion. You're the reason 43 wolves are dead. I wrote poems. Sarah shouted. I wrote about remembering who we used to be before fear made us cruel. I wrote about packs that protected their weak instead of culling them. I wrote about a king who used to walk among his people instead of hiding behind execution orders. She gripped the bars, her omega wolf rising in her eyes, brown shifting to gold. Those 43 wolves. They died because your enforcers slaughtered them for daring to ask questions. For gathering to discuss my words. For being brave enough to hope things could be different. Declan's claws extended. You turned them against me. No. Sarah's voice dropped. You did that yourself. I just gave them words for what they already felt. And now you're going to kill me for it, and my daughter will grow up knowing her mother died trying to remind a king that he used to be good. Silence fell. Heavy. Suffocating. Declan looked at the flower in his hand. At the letter. At this woman who stood defiant even facing death. Elena's voice echoed in his memory. Even poison can be beautiful if you love it enough. You're right, he said finally. I was going to execute you without a second thought. Sarah's face hardened. Then do it. But leave Mira out of this. She's innocent. I'm not finished. Declan's voice was cold. You manipulated me. Used my dead mate's memory. Weaponized your own child. By all rights, I should drag you to the courtyard right now. He paused, his wolf snarling in his chest, pulling in 2 directions. But my mate kept one promise in her miserable, treacherous life. She told you I'd need reminding. And damn her to the moon and back. His voice cracked just slightly. She was right. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. Declan stood in the corridor outside Sarah's cell for a full minute after his declaration, wondering if he'd lost his damn mind. He'd been about to, what? Spare her? Show mercy? Him, the king who'd made brutality an art form? Behind him, he heard the night guards shifting nervously. Word would spread. The king had gone to the dungeons personally. The king had spoken to the traitor. The king had hesitated. Hesitation was weakness. Weakness got you killed. His father had taught him that before Declan was old enough to shift. His mate had proved it when she'd put poison in his wine and a knife between his ribs, literally and figuratively. Leave us, he said without turning around. The guards scrambled away. Smart. His mood was black enough to kill someone just for breathing too loud. When their footsteps faded, Declan finally looked at Sarah again. She hadn't moved from the bars, hadn't looked away from him. Those dark eyes studied him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. He hated it. "How did Elena find you?" he demanded. "Millbrook is 3 territories away. She never traveled alone. I would have known. She disguised herself as a merchant's wife." Sarah's voice was steady despite her chains. "Came to the village school where I taught. Said she wanted to discuss her niece's education. We spoke for hours." "About what?" "About you." Sarah tilted her head. "About the man you used to be. The one who'd visit villages unannounced to hear grievances. Who'd judge disputes himself rather than sending enforcers. Who'd carry pups on his shoulders during festivals." Declan's jaw clenched. That king was weak. He got betrayed. "That king was loved," Sarah corrected quietly. "There's a difference. Love is a liability. Love is the only thing that makes us different from monsters." He wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her she was naive and foolish and would die believing fairy tales. But something in her expression stopped him, a bone-deep weariness that matched his own. She'd loved once too, he realized. And lost it. "Your mate," he said. "The file says he died 4 years ago." "How?" Sarah's face shuddered. "That's none of your concern. Everything about you is my concern now. You made it so when you sent that letter." "I sent that letter to save my daughter. Not to give you ammunition. Answer the question, or I'll have Marcus extract it from your aunt's records." Sarah's hands tightened on the bars. For a moment, he thought she'd refuse. Then her shoulders sagged, just slightly, just enough to show the weight she carried. "Rogue attack," she said flatly. 3 rogues came through Millbrook. David was a Delta, not a fighter, but he tried to protect the school. The children. Her voice cracked. They tore him apart in front of his students. In front of Mira. Declan felt something twist in his chest. How old was she? 2.5. Sarah's eyes were distant now, seeing something he couldn't. Too young to understand why Daddy wouldn't wake up. Old enough to have nightmares for years after. "And your poetry? When did that start?" "The night I buried him." She looked at him again, and the pain in her eyes was raw. "I couldn't scream. Mira was sleeping in my arms. So I wrote instead. Words about loss and rage and how the world keeps spinning even when yours has stopped." Despite himself, Declan understood. He'd felt that same impotent fury when Elena had betrayed him. The need to break something, destroy something, make the world hurt the way he hurt. He'd chosen executions. She'd chosen poetry. "Your early work," he said slowly. "It wasn't political. I've read the reports. You wrote about grief. About raising a child alone. About surviving," Sarah finished. "Yes. And then I wrote about my neighbors who were surviving too. The widow whose mate Bond drove her mad after he died. The Omega family whose pups were taken by enforcers for testing and never came back. The teacher who was beaten for teaching history that didn't match your revised textbooks." "Propaganda," Declan snapped. "Truth," Sarah shot back. "Truth you don't want to hear because it means admitting what you've become." He was across the corridor in 2 strides, gripping the bars so hard they groaned. Sarah didn't flinch. Didn't back away. Just stared up at him with those infuriating eyes. "What I've become," he growled, "is a king who keeps his territories safe. Unified. Strong. Terrified," Sarah corrected. "You become a king who rules through terror. There's no unity in fear. Only silence. Silence is order. Silence is death." She moved closer until they were separated by just the bars and bad decisions. "You're killing us slowly. Every execution. Every new law. Every freedom stripped away. We're dying inside, and you call it peace. Her scent hit him then, lavender and rain and something uniquely her. His wolf surged forward with interest he absolutely did not want. Omegas were weak. Emotional. Liabilities. This Omega was none of those things, and that terrified him more than he'd admit. "You're malnourished," he heard himself say. "When did you last eat?" Sarah blinked at the subject change. "What does that matter?" "Answer the question." "Yesterday." "Maybe. Time blurs down here. You've been here 3 months. Marcus said. He stopped. Realized what he was about to say. What it revealed. But Sarah had already caught it. Marcus said I'd been questioned extensively. Her smile was bitter. "That's a polite word for torture, Your Majesty. Though your beta was creative, I'll give him that. Starvation. Sleep deprivation. Just enough healing between sessions to start fresh." Rage flooded Declan's veins. "I gave no such orders. You gave orders to extract information by any means necessary. What did you think that meant?" He had thought that. Exactly that. But hearing it said aloud, seeing the evidence in her hollowed cheeks and the way she held herself, carefully, like movement hurt, made him feel something dangerously close to shame. "Did you break?" he asked. "No." "Why not?" Sarah's expression softened. "Because Mira draws me pictures of us together. Because my aunt smuggles letters to me hidden in food I barely get to eat. Because somewhere in this kingdom, there are still wolves who remember what it means to hope." She straightened despite her obvious exhaustion. "And because I knew, that if I broke, if I gave you names, you'd execute them all. Families. Children. Everyone. You don't do half measures anymore, King Declan. So no, I didn't break. I won't break. You'll have to kill me first." There it was. That defiant fire that should have made him want to crush her. Instead, his wolf practically purred. "Mate," it whispered. "Strong mate. Worthy." Declan shoved the thought away violently. "You're delusional. I'm realistic. Which is why I taught my daughter to write letters. To spread small kindnesses. To believe that even mean kings can remember how to smile." Sarah's voice dropped. "Someone has to believe in redemption, or what's the point of any of this?" "The point," Declan said coldly, "is survival. Power. Control. The point," Sarah countered, "is living. Not just surviving. And you've forgotten the difference." Before Declan could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Marcus appeared, looking harried. "Sir, He stopped when he saw Declan at the cell. "Apologies. I didn't realize you were still." "What is it?" Marcus glanced at Sarah, then back to Declan. "It's about the prisoner. There's something in her records. Something I think you should see. Privately." Declan's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "Sir." "Now, Marcus." His beta's jaw worked. Finally, he pulled out a worn folder, different from the first one. Older. "I went back through the archives," Marcus said slowly. "To verify her bloodline. Standard procedure for political prisoners. And I found discrepancies." "What kind of discrepancies?" Marcus opened the folder with obvious reluctance. "Sarah Silverpaw isn't her birth name. She changed it legally 7 years ago when she mated David Silverpaw. So? Omegas take their mate's pack name. That's tradition." "Yes, but her original registration was sealed. Marked classified by order of the previous High Council. I had to pull strings just to access it." Marcus held up a document with a red seal Declan recognized. "Sir, her birth name is Sarah Moonblood." The corridor went silent. Moonblood. That was impossible. "The Moon bloodline is extinct," Declan said flatly. "They were wiped out in the Purge 50 years ago. Everyone knows that. Everyone thought that, Marcus corrected. But apparently, a few survived. Went into hiding. Scattered across territories under assumed names. He pointed to a faded photograph. This is Sarah's grandmother. Lydia Moonblood. She was part of the original line before she went into hiding in Millbrook. Declan grabbed the folder, scanning the documents. Birth certificates. Bloodline records. A genealogy that made his blood run cold. The Moonbloods had been the most powerful Omega line in history. Rare. Coveted. And dangerous as hell. Because Moonbloods could form true mate bonds. Not the standard bonds that most wolves settled for, comfortable partnerships that felt like warmth and companionship. True bonds. The kind that couldn't be broken, even by death. The kind that made alphas stupid and omegas invincible. His father had led the purge specifically to eliminate them. Too powerful, he'd said. Too unpredictable. They upset the natural order. By natural order, he'd meant alpha supremacy. Declan looked at Sarah with new eyes. She stared back, and he saw the moment she realized he knew. "You're Moonblood," he said softly. I was. Her voice was steady. Then I watched my bloodline die. My parents. My cousins. My entire family except my grandmother and aunt, hunted like animals because your father decided we were threats. Her eyes flashed gold. So yes, I changed my name. I hid. I pretended to be just another Omega widow. And I survived. The poetry wasn't about politics at first, Sarah finished. It was about remembering. About keeping my bloodline's history alive in words since we couldn't keep it alive in flesh. But then I realized something. She moved closer to the bars again, and her scent wrapped around Declan like chains. I realized that every Omega in this kingdom is treated the way my family was. As less than. As weak. As expendable. And I thought, maybe if I write about it, maybe if I give them words, they'll remember they're more than what you've told them they are. You started a rebellion because of family pride? Declan's laugh was harsh. I started a conversation, Sarah corrected fiercely, because someone needed to. Because you'd made it illegal to even question your authority. Because children like Mira deserve to grow up in a kingdom where their worth isn't determined by their designation. Noble, Declan sneered. And useless. You'll still die at dawn. Will I? Sarah tilted her head. Because you're still here. Still talking to me. Still holding that letter from my daughter like it means something. Damn her. Damn her for being right. Marcus, Declan said without looking away from Sarah. The Moonblood bloodline. What were the traditional markers? Sir. The markers. How did they identify true Moonbloods versus standard Omegas? Marcus flipped through the folder. Enhanced empathy. Stronger healing abilities. Resistance to alpha compulsion. And. He hesitated. The ability to form true mate bonds, but only with specific alphas. The bonds were described as chosen by fate rather than circumstance. Could they bond with anyone? Or were there restrictions? Records indicate the bond only formed with alphas of sufficient strength and compatible bloodline. Royal bloodlines were most common. The bond couldn't be forced, both parties had to accept it willingly. Declan's wolf was howling now. Mine. Mate. Mine. He ignored it. Had to ignore it. And if a Moonblood found their true mate but the bond was rejected, he pressed. The Moonblood would live but never bond with another. The Alpha. Marcus swallowed. Historical records suggest the Alpha would descend into madness within a year. The bond recognition was permanent even if unaccepted. Perfect. Just perfect. Declan turned back to Sarah. Did you know what you are? What you carry? I've always known. Her voice was quiet. My grandmother taught me before she died. Taught me to hide it. To never tell anyone, especially not an alpha. She paused. She said the bloodline was both gift and curse. That we felt everything deeper, love, loss, pain. That we were stronger than we looked but more vulnerable than we'd admit. And your daughter? Sarah's face transformed. Fear, raw and real, flashed across her features. She's 6, she whispered. Too young to know. Too young to show markers. Please, whatever else you do, don't hurt her because of what I am. She's innocent. She's just a child who... I don't hurt children, Declan cut her off coldly. You've hurt plenty of families. Don't pretend you have limits. She was right. He'd signed orders that separated pups from parents. That sent enforcers into schools. That treated children as acceptable collateral damage. When had he become this? Your aunt, he said abruptly. Marcus mentioned she's dying. Sarah's expression shuddered. Lung disease. She has maybe weeks left. She's been caring for Mira, but... Her voice cracked. But soon Mira will have no one. That's why I wrote the poetry. Why I spoke out. I needed to do something before I lost the chance. Before she was alone. And if I execute you at dawn? Then my daughter becomes an orphan raised by the state. Your state. She'll be shuffled into an Omega training program where they'll break her spirit and teach her she's worthless. She'll forget she was ever loved. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. So yes, I used her. I sent her to write letters. I taught her to hope because someone has to. And if you have to kill me for that, then fine. But let her remember I tried. She sank to the floor then, chains rattling, and for the first time since he'd arrived, she looked broken. I'm so tired, she whispered. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending I'm not terrified. Just, if you have any mercy left, make it quick. And tell Mira her mama loved her. Please. Declan stood frozen. His wolf was tearing him apart inside, screaming at him to open the cell, to hold her, to promise her everything would be fine. But he was a king. Kings didn't make promises they couldn't keep. Marcus, he said quietly. Cancel the execution. His beta's head snapped up. Sir. You heard me. Cancel it. And bring me every file we have on the Silverpaw Rebellion, not the official reports. The real ones. Witness statements. Interrogation transcripts. Everything. But the council. I am the council, Declan roared. Now move. Marcus fled. Declan looked down at Sarah, who was staring at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. You're not killing me? Not today. He crouched to her level, separated by bars and bloodlines and bad history. But don't mistake this for kindness, Omega. I need answers. About your bloodline. About Elena's message. About why a 6-year-old pup with crayon drawings is the only thing that's made me question myself in 5 years. He stood, preparing to leave. And Sarah? He paused. If you're lying to me, about any of this, I'll make you wish I'd executed you at dawn. Are we clear? Crystal, she whispered. As Declan walked away, he heard her voice, soft and broken. Thank you. He didn't respond. Couldn't. Because thanking him implied he'd done something good. And Declan Nightshade hadn't done anything good in a very long time. But as he climbed the dungeon stairs, he found himself holding Myra's letter close to his chest, and hating himself for the small, stupid spark of hope it kindled in his dead heart. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. Declan spent 3 hours reading interrogation reports before he admitted what he already knew. Sarah Silverpaw had told the truth. Every witness confirmed the same story. She'd written poetry. She'd shared it at small gatherings, reading circles, she'd called them. Harmless meetings where wolves discussed literature and history. His enforcers had called them sedition cells. The reports painted a damning picture, but not of Sarah. Of him. Wolves beaten for attending readings. Families torn apart for possessing her poems. A 15-year-old Delta executed for copying her words about freedom onto a school wall. 43 dead. But how many had died because of Sarah's words versus his orders? The question haunted him as dawn broke over the palace. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. His wolf was restless, pacing inside his mind, fixated on the Omega in the dungeons. On her scent. Her defiance. The way she'd looked at him like she could see straight through his armor to the man beneath. True mate, his wolf insisted. Ours. Must protect. She's not ours, Declan growled aloud. She's a prisoner. A rebel. A knock at his door interrupted him. Enter. Marcus stepped in, looking exhausted. The execution has been officially postponed. The council is displeased. The council can rot. Sir, they're demanding an explanation. You've never stayed an execution before. They're calling it weakness. Then they can call it to my face. Declan stood, every inch the predator. Summon them. Now. 20 minutes later, he stood before his council, 12 wolves who'd built their power on his brutality and were now questioning it. Lord Garrett, an aging alpha with more ambition than sense, spoke first. Your Majesty, this deviation from protocol is concerning. The Silverpaw woman is a proven threat. Her execution would send a clear message. And what message would that be? Declan asked softly. That we execute Omegas for writing poetry? That we fear words more than claws? The council shifted uncomfortably. Lady Helena, a shrewd beta who'd served his father, leaned forward. The Omega incited rebellion. 43 casualties. Caused by our enforcers, Declan cut her off. I've read the reports. Real reports, not the sanitized versions you've been feeding me. We slaughtered wolves for the crime of reading. Children watched their parents die for discussing ideas. Dangerous ideas, Lord Garrett insisted. Ideas about remembering our history. About questioning whether rule through terror is sustainable. Declan's voice dropped. Tell me, Lord Garrett, when did we become the monsters our grandparents fought against? Silence fell like a blade. The Omega lives, Declan declared. But she'll serve her sentence here, in the palace. Under my direct supervision. The council erupted in protests. He let them rage for exactly 30 seconds before releasing just enough of his alpha presence to choke the air from the room. Are we clear? He asked into the sudden quiet. Reluctant nods answered him. Good. Now get out. They fled. All except Marcus, who lingered by the door. You're playing a dangerous game, his beta said quietly. I'm trying to figure out the rules, Declan corrected. There's a difference. The court will see this as weakness. Your enemies will move. Let them. I welcome it. Declan moved to the window overlooking his territory. I've been so focused on appearing strong that I forgot to question whether strength means what I think it means. Since when do you question anything? Since a 6-year-old drew me smiling and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I did. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do with her? The Omega? I don't know, Declan admitted. But I'm going to find out what Elena saw. What made her think this woman could reach me when no one else could? And if the true mate bond is real? Declan's hands clenched on the windowsill. Then we have a bigger problem than I thought. Sarah was dreaming of Mira when the cell door opened. Not the torture. Not the interrogations. Just Mira, laughing, dancing, begging for one more story before bed. The dreams were all she had left. Wake up, Omega. She jerked awake to find Declan standing over her, backlit by torchlight. For a moment, he looked almost otherworldly, a dark king from the old stories her grandmother used to tell. Then she remembered he was the reason she was here, and the moment shattered. Come to gloat? Her voice was rough from disuse. Come to make you an offer. He crouched to her level, and she hated that even exhausted and filthy, her body responded to his nearness. You become my prisoner servant. You live in the palace, perform duties I assign, and write no more rebellious poetry. And in exchange? Mira visits weekly. Supervised, but visits. She stays with your aunt until... He paused. Until other arrangements can be made. Until her aunt died. He didn't say it, but Sarah heard it. You want me to be your slave, she said flatly. I want you alive and useful rather than dead and making you a martyr. His eyes were unreadable. Your poetry has already spread too far. Executing you would only validate everything you've written. But keeping you here, showing the kingdom that rebellion leads to servitude rather than glory? That sends a different message. You want to break me publicly. I want to control the narrative. He stood. Choose, Sarah. Life in chains or death at dawn. I've postponed the execution, not cancelled it. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to spit in his face and tell him she'd rather die than serve him. But then she thought of Mira, her baby girl with the crayon drawings and the hope that wouldn't die. If Sarah was executed, Mira would be alone. Orphaned. Lost in a system designed to crush spirits like hers. I accept, she whispered, hating herself. But I have conditions. His eyebrow rose. You're not in a position to negotiate. You need me compliant, not resistant. That means conditions. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Mira doesn't see me doing menial labor. She doesn't watch me be humiliated. When she visits, I'm treated with basic dignity. Agreed. And I get to send her letters. Real letters, not supervised propaganda. Supervised, but unedited, Declan countered. I won't have you coordinating another rebellion through hidden messages. Fine. And one more thing. Sarah's voice hardened. You don't use her against me. Ever. Whatever punishment you devise, whatever power play you need, you leave my daughter out of it. She's innocent. Something flickered in Declan's expression. Almost like respect. You have my word, he said. A king's oath. Your daughter will not be used as leverage. Your word means nothing to me. Then you'll have to trust I'm practical. Hurting children would only prove your poetry right. He held out his hand. Do we have a bargain? Sarah stared at his hand, strong, scarred, capable of such violence. Then she thought of Myra's smile and took it. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot through her. Her wolf surged forward with recognition that made her blood run cold. Mate, it whispered. Alpha. Ours. No. Absolutely not. She jerked her hand back, and from Declan's expression, he'd felt it too. That was, she started. Nothing, he cut her off harshly. The bond recognition was from my first mate. It's impossible for it to happen twice. Right. Impossible. But her wolf was howling, and from the way Declan's eyes had shifted to amber, his was too. They stared at each other, both denying what every instinct screamed was true. Finally, Declan turned away. Guards will escort you to your quarters. You'll be given appropriate clothing and food. Your duties begin tomorrow. And Mira? I'll send word to your aunt about the arrangement. He paused at the door. Sarah? Don't make me regret this. Then he was gone, and Sarah was left alone with the horrifying realization that the man she hated might be the mate she'd waited her whole life to find. The news of her aunt's death came 3 days later. Sarah was scrubbing floors in the palace's east wing, deliberate humiliation, making the rebel poet perform menial labor, when Marcus found her. Your aunt passed this morning, he said quietly. Peacefully, in her sleep. The child is with temporary foster care awaiting your instructions. The brush fell from Sarah's hands. Mira. I need to see Mira. That wasn't part of the arrangement. I don't care. Sarah surged to her feet, and several nearby guards reached for weapons. My daughter just lost the last stable person in her life. She needs me. Now. I'll inform the king. Inform me of what? Declan appeared from nowhere, and Sarah wanted to hate how her traitorous body responded to his presence. 3 days of carefully avoiding him, and her wolf still perked up like a lovesick pup. The aunt died, Marcus reported. The Omega is requesting. I heard. Declan's expression was unreadable. Where's the child? Foster home in the village. Standard protocol for orphaned Omegas. Bring her here. Everyone froze. Sir? Marcus looked genuinely shocked. The child comes here. To the palace. She'll have proper quarters near her mother. Declan's tone brooked no argument. A 6-year-old just lost her family. She doesn't need to be warehoused with strangers. The council can bark at the moon for all I care. Get the pup. Now. As Marcus hurried off, Sarah found her voice. Why? Because I made a promise that your daughter wouldn't be used as leverage. Leaving her to rot in foster care would be exactly that. Declan wouldn't look at her. And because no child should be alone when they're grieving. Before Sarah could respond, he walked away, leaving her standing in the hallway with tears streaming down her face and absolutely no idea what to make of the king who'd just shown mercy when cruelty would have been easier. Mira arrived that evening, small and scared and clutching a worn stuffed wolf. Sarah nearly broke when she saw her. 3 months apart, and her daughter had grown thinner, paler. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Mama? Myra's voice was tiny. Mama, is it really you? Then they were on the floor, wrapped around each other, sobbing. Sarah breathed in her daughter's scent, honeysuckle and sunshine, and promised herself she'd endure anything to keep this child safe. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Auntie said you were helping the king, Mira sniffled. Is that true? Sarah pulled back just enough to see her daughter's face. Yes. I'm working here now. At the palace. Like a helper? Close enough. Yes, sweetheart. Like a helper. And I get to stay? Hope bloomed in those dark eyes. Really stay? With you? Really stay? Sarah looked up at the guard hovering nearby. She's allowed to stay, right? King's orders, the guard confirmed gruffly. The pup has quarters next to yours. Meals provided. Education will be arranged. Myra's eyes went wide. I get to live in a palace? Like a princess? Something like that. Sarah forced a smile even as her heart broke. This wasn't the life she'd wanted for her daughter. But it was the life they had. That night, Sarah held Mira while she cried for her aunt. Sang her the old songs. Told her stories about the stars. And tried not to think about the fact that somewhere in this palace, Declan Nightshade was possibly doing the same thing she was, lying awake, wrestling with a bond that shouldn't exist. Over the next 2 weeks, Mira did what Mira did best. She brought light into darkness. The child was fearless in ways that terrified Sarah. She wandered the palace like she owned it, chattering with guards, sneaking cookies from the kitchen, and leaving crayon drawings everywhere. Including on the king's door. Sarah discovered this when Declan summoned her to his office, her daughter in tow. Your pup, he said without preamble, keeps decorating my private chambers. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. I'll speak to her about boundaries. I'm not finished. He held up a drawing, this one showing him and Mira having a tea party. She also keeps inviting me to activities. Tea parties. Story time. Something called dress up that I don't understand and frankly fear. Despite everything, Sarah bit back a smile. She's 6. She thinks everyone wants to play. I'm a king. You're also the person who let her live here. Mira piped up from behind her mother's legs. So you must be nice. Mama says only nice people help children. Declan's expression did something complicated. He looked at Mira, then at Sarah, then back to the drawing. I don't do tea parties, he said firmly. What about stories? Mira pressed. Mama's tired at night. She tries to hide it, but I can tell. Maybe you could read to me sometimes? Just until she's less sad. The room went silent. Sarah wanted to intervene, to save Declan from her daughter's innocence. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way he was looking at Mira, not with irritation, but with something almost like longing. I don't read bedtime stories, he said finally. Never? Mira looked devastated. Not in a very long time. That's sad. Mira walked right up to him with zero fear. Everyone should have stories. They make the dark less scary. She held up a book, one of her favorites about a wolf who learned to howl. Just one story, she asked. Please. I'll be really good. And I'll stop drawing on your door. Mostly. Declan stared at this tiny Omega pup who'd invaded his palace, his routine, and apparently his defenses. Then, to Sarah's absolute shock, he took the book. One story, he said gruffly. But you sit quietly and don't interrupt. Myra's squeal of joy echoed through the office. She scrambled into a chair, eyes bright with anticipation. And Declan Nightshade, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, sat down and began to read. His voice was different when he read, softer, with less of the harsh edge Sarah had come to expect. He did voices for the characters. He showed Mira the pictures. And when the story ended with the young wolf learning to howl at the moon, something in his expression cracked. Just for a moment. Just enough for Sarah to see the man he used to be. Thank you, Mira whispered. That was the best story ever. It was adequate, Declan muttered, but his hand lingered on the book's cover. Can we do it again tomorrow? Absolutely not. The day after? You're persistent. Mama says that's a good thing. Your mama says a lot of things. But when Declan looked at Sarah, there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not anger. Not even annoyance. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. As if he saw her, really saw her, for the first time. The full moon came 2 weeks later. Sarah felt it building all day, the restless energy, the heightened senses, the way her wolf pressed against her skin. Full moons always made her emotional, but this was different. This was need. Primal and terrifying. She'd put Mira to bed early, singing until her daughter drifted off. Then she'd retreated to her quarters, hoping to ride out the moon's pull alone. But her wolf had other plans. Find him, it demanded. Need him. Alpha. Mate. He's not our mate, Sarah whispered to the empty room. We're just confused. The bond with David broke when he died. We're vulnerable. That's all this is. Her wolf snarled in disagreement. Sarah lasted until midnight. Then the pull became unbearable, a physical ache that drove her from her room and through the palace corridors. She wasn't going to him. She was just walking. Getting air. Definitely not following his scent like a compass pointing north. She found him on the palace balcony, silhouetted against the full moon. He didn't turn, but she knew he sensed her. You should be in your quarters. I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. The moon hung between them, fat and silver and demanding. Sarah could feel her wolf rising, could feel the bond trying to snap into place. It's not real, she said desperately. This feeling. It's just the moon. Just biology. I know. But Declan's hands were white-knuckled on the balcony rail. You had a mate. True mates can only bond once. I know that too. So this is impossible. Finally, he turned to look at her, and his eyes were pure wolf. But my wolf doesn't care about impossible. It only cares that you're here and you're mine and I'm supposed to protect you. I'm your prisoner. I know. His voice was anguished. I know that. But it doesn't change what I feel. What I've been feeling since the moment you touched my hand. Sarah's breathing hitched. Declan. Don't. He stepped back like she'd burned him. Don't say my name like that. Don't look at me like I'm something other than the monster who imprisoned you. You let my daughter live here. You read her stories. I showed basic decency. That doesn't erase what I've done. What I am. The bond pulled tighter, and Sarah gasped. Her wolf was clawing to get out, to complete what the moon demanded. Declan's control shattered. In 2 strides he was in front of her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his heat. I feel it, he growled. Every time you're near. Every time I hear your voice. My wolf is screaming that you're mine, that I need to claim you, that this is right. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. But you're moon blood. You don't bond by accident. You choose. And you would never choose me. Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. How do you know? Because you're good. Because you fight for others. Because your daughter draws pictures of me smiling and you've spent 3 months being tortured and you still haven't broken. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because I'm exactly the kind of alpha your bloodline was created to redeem, and I'm not worth redeeming. The moon reached its peak, and the bond snapped into place with force that dropped them both to their knees. Mate, Sarah's wolf howled in triumph. True mate. Ours. Ours. She looked at Declan through the haze of the bond, saw him fighting the same battle, and knew with absolute certainty that everything had just changed. Because true mate bonds couldn't be denied. And the man she hated was now, impossibly, irrevocably, hers. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The bond was agony. Declan felt Sarah constantly now, her emotions bleeding into his, her presence a weight against his chest even when she was rooms away. His wolf had settled into smug satisfaction, content that their mate was close and safe. But Declan was far from content. He couldn't sleep. Couldn't focus. Couldn't go 3 goddamned minutes without wondering what she was doing, if she was eating enough, if she was happy. And that last thought scared him most of all. Since when did he care about anyone's happiness? He stood in his private chambers, staring at the mark on his inner wrist that had appeared the night of the full moon. A crescent moon intertwined with a wolf, the traditional moon blood mating mark. It shouldn't exist. He'd had a mate. The bond should have been impossible to form again. Yet here it was, silver against his skin, burning with awareness of her. A knock interrupted his brooding. What? He snarled. Marcus entered, looking harried. We have a problem. Another one? How refreshing. The council is demanding an audience. They've heard rumors about the Omega. Declan's blood went cold. What kind of rumors? That she's more than a prisoner. That you've been spending time with her daughter. That you're showing favoritism. Marcus hesitated. Lord Thorne is calling for a vote of no confidence. Let him try. I'll rip his throat out with my bare hands. That's exactly what they're counting on. They want you to react emotionally. To prove you're compromised. Marcus moved closer, lowering his voice. Sir, they know about the bond. I don't know how, but they know. Declan's claws extended. Who told them? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But someone has been feeding them information. Someone close enough to observe your interactions with the Omega and her pup. A spy. In his own palace. Double the guards on Sarah and Mira, Declan ordered. No one gets near them without my explicit permission. And Marcus? Find the leak. I don't care what you have to do. There's more. Marcus pulled out a folder. I've been researching your first mate. Lyanna. Specifically, the circumstances of your bonding. Declan's entire body went rigid. That's not open for discussion. Sir, you need to hear this. I've found discrepancies. I said it's not open for discussion. The windows rattled with the force of his alpha command. Lyanna betrayed me. She tried to kill me. I executed her for treason. End of story. But what if it isn't? Marcus pressed, showing rare defiance. What if the bond wasn't real? What if? Get out. Declan. Out. Marcus left, but the folder remained on the desk, taunting him. Declan stared at it for a long moment. Then, hating himself, he opened it. Sarah was teaching Mira letters in their shared sitting room when the emotions hit her like a tidal wave. Pain. Rage. Grief so profound it felt like drowning. She gasped, clutching her chest, and Mira looked up in alarm. Mama? Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired. But it was a lie. The bond was screaming at her, demanding she go to him, comfort him, make the pain stop. She resisted. Barely. Can we take a break? Mira asked, sensing her mother's distress even if she didn't understand it. Maybe go to the gardens? You always feel better outside. Smart girl. That sounds perfect. They were heading toward the door when it burst open. A palace servant, one Sarah vaguely recognized, stood there with a tray. Refreshments, the woman said quickly. By order of the king. He thought the young miss might enjoy some treats. Sarah's instincts prickled. Declan hadn't sent them anything before. I didn't request. Please, Mama. Myra's eyes lit up at the sight of honey cakes, her favorite. Just one. The servant set the tray down and fled before Sarah could refuse. Something about that bothered her, but Mira was already reaching for a cake. Wait. Sarah grabbed her daughter's hand. Let me check them first. But Mama. Please, Mira. Humor me. She picked up a cake, examining it. It looked normal. Smelled normal. But that prickling sensation wouldn't go away. I'll try one first, she decided. If it's good, you can have some. Promise? Promise. Sarah raised the cake to her lips. No. The roar came from the doorway. Declan burst into the room with Marcus behind him, moving faster than should be possible. He knocked the cake from Sarah's hand, sending it flying across the room. Don't touch those, he snarled. Don't touch anything on that tray. Mira started crying. But you sent them. The lady said. I sent nothing. Declan crouched to Myra's level, his expression fierce but his voice gentle. What lady, little one? What did she look like? She had brown hair. And a scar. Right here. Mira touched her own cheek, showing where. Declan's face went ashen. He turned to Marcus. Brown hair. Facial scar. Find her. Now. As Marcus raced off, Declan carefully scooped up the honey cakes using a cloth, not touching them directly. What's wrong? Sarah demanded. What's on those? If I'm right? Wolfsbane extract. Enough to kill an Omega within minutes. A pup. He looked at Mira, and Sarah saw real fear in his eyes. A pup would have died instantly. The world tilted. Sarah grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. Someone had tried to murder her daughter. Who? She whispered. Who would? That's what I'm going to find out. Declan's voice was deadly calm. And when I do, they'll wish I'd shown them mercy. They found the servant 2 hours later. Dead. Poisoned by the same wolfsbane she tried to use on Sarah and Mira. Professional, Marcus reported grimly. She was hired 3 weeks ago. Came with impeccable references that turned out to be forged. Someone planted her here specifically to get close to the Omega and her daughter. The council, Declan said flatly. We can't prove it. But Lord Thorne has been very vocal about the Omega problem. Calling her a distraction. A weakness. Then Thorne and I are going to have a conversation. Declan stood, every inch the predator. A private one. Sir, you can't just. Watch me. But before Declan could leave, a guard burst in. Your Majesty. The pup, she's collapsed. Everything stopped. Mira had eaten part of a cake. Just a small bite, Sarah sobbed. Just the tiniest piece when her mother wasn't looking because she'd been so excited and Sarah had been distracted by the Bond's pole Anne. This is my fault, Sarah whispered as healers swarmed around her daughter's still form. I should have watched her better. I should have. This is not your fault. Declan's hand was on her shoulder, solid and steady. The fault lies with whoever sent that poison. She's so small. What if? She's going to be fine. But Declan's voice shook. She has to be fine. The healers worked for hours. Sarah watched, numb, as they forced healing drafts down Myra's throat, as they used magic and medicine to try to purge the poison. Declan never left. He stood vigil beside them, and when Sarah finally collapsed from exhaustion, he caught her. Rest, he murmured. I'll watch her. I won't let anything happen to her. I swear it. You promise? On my life. Sarah wanted to argue. Wanted to stay awake. But the bond was wrapping around her like a blanket, Declan's determination and protectiveness flowing through it, and she couldn't fight both exhaustion and that. She slept. When she woke, it was to find Declan exactly where she'd left him. He sat in a chair beside Myra's bed, holding the child's small hand in his much larger one. He was reading to her. Even though Mira was unconscious, even though she couldn't hear him, he was reading her favorite story about the wolf who learned to howl. Sarah's heart cracked open. You don't have to do that, she said softly. Declan didn't look up. Yes, I do. She asked me to read to her. So I'm reading. Declan. If she dies. His voice broke. If she dies because someone wanted to hurt you, because I couldn't protect her. This isn't your fault. Everything in this kingdom is my fault. Finally, he looked at her, and his eyes were devastated. I created a court of vipers. I encouraged brutality. I made this place so toxic that people think murdering children is acceptable strategy. You also saved her life. If you hadn't burst in when you did, it wouldn't have been necessary if I'd kept her safe in the first place. Sarah moved to sit beside him, and she took his free hand without thinking. The bond hummed with approval. Tell me, she said quietly. Tell me what Marcus found. What made you come running? For a long moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then. Lionel wasn't my true mate. Sarah's breath caught. The bond was false, Declan continued, his voice hollow. Created through dark magic. Blood magic. Marcus found records, hidden records. From a witch named Morgana. She orchestrated everything. Why? Revenge. My father executed her family during the purge. They were Moonbloods. He laughed bitterly. Ironic, isn't it? The bloodline I helped destroy came back to destroy me. But if the bond was false, then I didn't kill my true mate. I killed a puppet. A weapon aimed at my heart. Declan's hand tightened on hers. But that doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change that I trusted her. Loved her. And she used that to nearly end me. Is that why you closed yourself off? Why you became a monster? Yes. He finally looked at her fully. I decided if love made me weak, I'd eliminate love. If trust got me betrayed, I'd trust no one. If mercy was a liability, I'd show none. And it worked, Sarah said. Until a 6-year-old sent you a letter. Until you reminded me that I used to be someone else. His thumb traced circles on her hand. Someone who would have been horrified by what I've become. Mira stirred then, making a small sound. They both froze. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. Mama, she whispered. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Hurts. I know, sweetheart. But you're going to be okay. The healers fixed you. Myra's gaze drifted to Declan. You stayed. I promised your mother I would. You kept reading to me. I heard you. Myra's small hand squeezed his. Even in the dark place, I heard your voice. It helped me find the way back. Declan's composure shattered. Sarah saw tears, actual tears, slip down his face. Good, he managed. I'm glad. Are you my friend now? Mira asked with childish directness. You read to me and held my hand and cried because I was sick. That's what friends do. Yes. I suppose I am. Good. Mira smiled despite her obvious pain. Can I call you something else? Friend is too long. Like what? Mama says my daddy is watching from the stars. But maybe. She yawned, already drifting back to sleep. Maybe you could be my new daddy. Just until I get to the stars too. Silence fell like snow. Sarah opened her mouth to explain, to tell Mira that wasn't appropriate, that the king couldn't be. I'd be honored, Declan whispered. Then Mira said the thing that broke him completely. Love you, Daddy. And Declan Nightshade, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, buried his face in his hands and wept. 3 days passed. Mira recovered slowly, kept in the palace's medical wing under constant guard. Declan had tripled security and personally vetted every servant who came near her. Lord Thorne had mysteriously fallen ill and retired from court. No one questioned it, though Marcus reported finding evidence in Thorne's chambers, correspondence with someone named Morgana. The witch who'd orchestrated Lyanna's deception. The witch who was apparently still very much alive and very interested in destroying Declan. On the 4th day, Sarah found Declan in his study, surrounded by papers. You should rest, she said. Can't. There's too much to do. Too many threads to follow. Declan. Morgana didn't just create a false bond with Lyanna. She's been working against me for years. Feeding information to rebels. Orchestrating uprisings. Placing spies. He looked up, and his eyes were wild. Your rebellion. The Silver Paw Uprising. Half the wolves involved had connections to a mysterious benefactor who provided funding and information. Sarah's stomach dropped. You think Morgana? I think she's been using your righteous cause to destabilize my kingdom. I think she knew about your bloodline and planned to use you against me eventually. His voice dropped. And I think the wolfsbane flower in Myra's letter wasn't from Elena. It was from Morgana. A signature. A taunt. But how would she know to include it? How would she know about your private ritual with Elena, with Lyanna? Because Morgana is Lyanna's sister. The world tilted. She watched me execute her sister, Declan continued. Watched me break the false bond and end Lyanna's life. And she's been planning her revenge ever since. Then the bond between us is real, Declan said firmly. Marcus verified it. Moonblood bonds can't be faked. They're tied to bloodline magic that even dark witches can't replicate. He stood, moving around the desk to stand before her. But that doesn't mean Morgana won't try to use it. To twist it. To hurt us both through it. Sarah's hand went to her chest, where the bond pulsed steady and true. What do we do? We finish what my father started. Declan's expression was grim. We find Morgana. And we end this. Before she takes anyone else he stopped himself. Anyone else you what? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Sarah saw everything he was trying not to say. Anyone else I love, he finished quietly. The bond flared between them, and Sarah realized with startling clarity that somewhere between the dungeon and the poisoning, between the cruelty and the kindness, she'd started to fall for him too. For the broken king trying to be good again. For the monster learning to be human. For her mate. We'll stop her, Sarah said. Together. Together, Declan echoed. And when he took her hand, the bond settled into place like coming home. But in the shadows of the palace, a letter was being delivered. Sealed with wolfsbane and written in elegant script. The true game begins now, dear king. I took your false love. Now I'll destroy your true one. And you'll watch, powerless, as everything you've finally allowed yourself to care about turns to ash. With love and malice. Morgana. The war for Declan's soul, and his kingdom, had officially begun. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The letter arrived at dawn, delivered by a raven with eyes that glowed sickly green. Declan knew what it was before he opened it. The wolfsbane scent was unmistakable. Marcus stood beside him as he read, watching his king's expression turn from stone to murder. Sir. Declan's hand crumpled the parchment. She has agents inside the palace. Close enough to watch Mira. His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded massacres. Close enough to threaten her. What does she want? A choice. Declan's laugh was bitter. Execute Sarah publicly, prove I'm still the heartless king she remembers, and Mira lives. Refuse, and she kills the pup slowly while I watch. That's not a choice. That's cruelty. Declan moved to the window overlooking his kingdom. Morgana learned from the best. My father taught an entire generation that love was weakness. That mercy was failure. And now his greatest student is using those lessons to destroy me. What are you going to do? For a long moment, Declan was silent. Then, something I should have done the moment I felt the bond. He turned, and Marcus had never seen such determination in his king's eyes. Summon the entire court. Everyone. Council members, nobles, guards, servants. I want every wolf in this palace in the throne room within the hour. Sir, if you're planning what I think. Then you'd better hurry. We don't have much time. Sarah was reading to Mira, her daughter finally strong enough to sit up, when the guards came. The king requests your presence, the lead guard said. Both of you. Immediately. Sarah's heart lurched. The bond was blazing with emotion so intense she could barely breathe. Determination. Fear. And something else. Something that felt like love. What's happening? She asked. You'll see soon enough. They were escorted through corridors packed with wolves. Everyone was heading toward the throne room, murmuring nervously. Sarah caught fragments. Emergency summons. Unprecedented. The Omega and her pup. Mira clutched her mother's hand tighter. Mama, I'm scared. Me too, baby. Sarah pulled her daughter close. But we'll face it together. Like always. The throne room was packed. Hundreds of wolves filled every available space, their scents mixing into something anxious and electric. At the center, on his throne, sat Declan. He looked like a king from the old stories, powerful, dangerous, absolute. But when his eyes found Sarah across the crowd, they softened. The bond pulled taut between them. "People of the Northern Territories," Declan's voice rang out, commanding instant silence. "I have called you here to witness something that will change this kingdom forever." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lord Garrett stepped forward, one of the few council members who'd survived Thorn's purge. "Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this? We have protocols." "I'm tired of protocols." Declan stood, descending from his throne with predatory grace. "I'm tired of rules designed to keep us apart. Of laws written in fear rather than wisdom. Of a kingdom built on the graves of those we were supposed to protect." The crowd stirred uncomfortably. 5 years ago, I closed my heart. I decided that strength meant isolation. That power meant cruelty. That being a good king required being a terrible person. He moved through the crowd, which parted before him like water. I was wrong. Gasps echoed through the room. Declan stopped before Sarah and Mira. Up close, Sarah could see the tension in his jaw, the fear he was hiding beneath kingly composure. "Sarah Silverpaw," he said formally. "Also known as Sarah Moonblood. Step forward." Sarah's legs moved on their own. Mira came with her, refusing to let go. "You wrote poetry that sparked rebellion," Declan continued, his voice carrying to every corner. "You spoke truths I didn't want to hear. You reminded me that I used to be someone better. Someone who would be horrified by what I've become." "Your Majesty," Lord Garrett protested. "I'm not finished." The alpha command in Declan's voice silenced all objections. "You also showed me something I'd forgotten. That love isn't weakness. That protecting others is the truest form of strength. That a king who rules through fear is just a tyrant with a crown." He took Sarah's free hand, and the bond blazed. "Before this court, before my kingdom, I claim you as my true mate. My queen. My equal." His voice gentled. "If you'll have me." The throne room erupted in chaos. Nobles shouting protests. Guards looking uncertain. Commoners watching with wide eyes. But Sarah heard none of it. She only heard Declan's next words, spoken directly to her through the bond. "I know I don't deserve you. I know I've done terrible things. But I'm asking anyway. Be mine. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of you." "You already are," she whispered back. Then louder, for everyone to hear, "I accept." Declan's smile was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. He raised their joined hands. "Then by the ancient laws of our kind, by the bond that cannot be broken, I mark you as mine." He bared his fangs, and Sarah tilted her head, offering her throat in a gesture of trust that made several nobles gasp. The marking was quick, intimate, and powerful. Sarah felt the bond snap fully into place, felt Declan's essence merge with hers until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When he pulled back, the mark on her throat glowed silver, the unmistakable sign of a true mate bond. "This is madness," Lord Garrett shouted. "The Omega is a traitor. A rebel. She is my queen," Declan said flatly. "And anyone who challenges that challenges me." The room went silent. Then Myra's small voice rang out, "Does this mean you're really my daddy now?" The tension broke. Several wolves laughed. Declan crouched to Myra's level. "If that's okay with you, little one." "It's better than okay." Mira threw her arms around his neck. "I always wanted a daddy who could read stories and be a king." Declan held her carefully, like she was made of glass. Over her head, he met Sarah's eyes, and she saw everything he was trying to say. "Thank you. For giving me a reason to be better. For showing me I could still love." She answered through the bond, "Thank you for choosing us. For being brave enough to try." Then the doors exploded inward. Morgana stood silhouetted in the entrance, power crackling around her like lightning. She was beautiful in a terrible way, dark hair, darker eyes, and a smile that promised pain. "How touching," she purred. The monster found his heart. "Pity I'm about to rip it out." Declan moved faster than thought, placing himself between Morgana and his new family. "You want me? Here I am. Leave them out of this." "But where's the fun in that?" Morgana's magic lashed out, and Wolf screamed as it struck. "You took my sister. Now I take everything you love. Starting with the pup." She flung a spell at Mira. Sarah didn't think. Her moon-blood instincts took over, and she threw herself in front of her daughter. The magic hit her square in the chest. And shattered. Silver light exploded from Sarah's body, so bright everyone had to look away. When it faded, she stood unharmed, glowing with power that made the air hum. "Impossible," Morgana breathed. The moon-blood abilities were dormant. "You shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't threaten my daughter," Sarah said, and her voice carried the weight of ancient power. "The moon-blood gift awakens when we find our true mates. When we have something worth protecting." She raised her hands, and healing magic poured from her, not just for herself, but for everyone in the room. Wolves who'd been injured by Morgana's initial attack gasped as wounds closed. Fear dissolved. Hope bloomed. "My gift isn't destruction," Sarah continued, walking forward. Declan moved with her, a united front. "It's empathy. Healing. Connection. Everything you lack." Morgana snarled, throwing spell after spell. But Sarah's power absorbed them, transformed them, turned hate into light and violence into peace. "You're just like your father." Morgana screamed at Declan. "Cruel. Heartless. A monster who was wrong," Declan said quietly. "My father was wrong. About the Moonbloods. About strength. About what it means to rule." He drew his sword, not to attack, but to defend. "And I've spent 5 years being wrong too. But I'm done now. Done with cruelty. Done with fear. Done with being the king you helped create. You can't change what you are. Watch me." Then something unexpected happened. Mira stepped forward, small and brave and glowing with her own soft light. "You're sad," she said to Morgana. "Really, really sad. Like Mama was when Daddy died." Morgana froze. "You miss your sister," Mira continued with the clarity only children possess. "You love her so much it hurts. But she's gone, and being angry won't bring her back. It just makes more people sad. You don't understand." "I do." Mira walked right up to her, fearless. "My first daddy is gone too. But I got a new daddy. And he's really good, even when he's trying to be mean. Maybe you could stop being angry and find someone to love instead?" The innocence. The pure, uncomplicated love radiating from this child who'd been poisoned, threatened, and caught in an adult war, it was too much. Morgana's magic flickered and died. She fell to her knees, and for the first time, she looked human. Broken. Lost. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't stop. I've been angry for so long, I don't remember how to be anything else." "Then let us help you remember," Sarah said gently. She extended her hand, not in violence, but in offering. "Moonbloods don't just heal bodies. We heal hearts. Let me help you. After everything I've done. Everyone deserves a chance to be better." Sarah glanced at Declan. "Everyone." For a long moment, Morgana stared at that outstretched hand. Then, slowly, she took it. Sarah's power flowed through the connection, gentle, persistent, warm. It found the festering wound of Morgana's grief and began to heal it. Not by erasing the pain, but by transforming it. Making it bearable. Morgana sobbed like a child. When it was over, she looked at Declan with clear eyes. "Your father killed my family. You killed my sister. But..." She took a shuddering breath. "But Lyanna made her choices. She agreed to the spell. She wanted revenge as much as I did. And that was her mistake. Her death. Not yours. I'm sorry, Declan said, and meant it. I'm sorry for what my father did. For the purge. For not questioning it sooner. Being sorry doesn't fix anything. No. But changing things might. He sheathed his sword. Help me. Help me rebuild this kingdom into something better. Something your family would be proud of. Morgana laughed wetly. You want me to work for you? I want you to work with me. With us. Declan gestured to the watching crowd. Help me make sure no other bloodline is ever hunted. No other family destroyed for being different. That's a tall order. Good thing I'm a king with resources. He smiled, a real smile, one that reached his eyes. And apparently a queen with the power to heal even the most broken souls. Sarah rolled her eyes but smiled too. Through the bond, she felt his determination, his hope, and beneath it all, his love. I love you, he sent. I know, she replied. I love you too, you ridiculous man. The reform started immediately. Declan abolished the harshest Omega laws first, the ones that treated them as property rather than people. Then came laws about fair trials, about representation, about education and opportunity regardless of designation. The council protested. The nobles grumbled. But when Sarah stood beside Declan and used her gift to show them what the kingdom could become. A vision of wolves living without fear, of packs working together, of children growing up safe, they began to understand. Change was possible. Not easy, but possible. Morgana proved invaluable. She knew where every corrupt official had hidden their secrets, every dark deal that had been made. With her help, they cleaned house. And through it all, Mira was their light. She charmed nobles and commoners alike, reminding everyone what they were fighting for, a future where children could be children, not casualties. The coronation was held 3 months later, on the first day of spring. Sarah stood in her chambers, staring at the queen's crown. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Having second thoughts? Declan asked from the doorway. Having all the thoughts. She turned to him. I was a poet. A teacher. A rebel. And now I'm supposed to be queen. You're supposed to be yourself. That's all I need. He crossed to her, taking her hands. You made me better. Let's make the kingdom better together. What if I'm not enough? What if you're exactly right? Before she could respond, Mira burst in wearing her flower girl dress, all pink ruffles and determination. Are you ready? Everyone's waiting. I practiced my petal throwing and everything. Sarah laughed despite her nerves. I'm ready. The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional. Dignified. Until Mira, in the middle of the solemn crown placing, shouted, "Family hug," and threw herself at her parents. The court watched in shock as their stern, reformed king and powerful queen dropped to their knees to embrace a 6-year-old who decided protocol was less important than love. Even Lord Garrett smiled. When they finally stood, crowns slightly askew and dignity thoroughly abandoned, Declan addressed the crowd. This is what we're building. A kingdom where love isn't weakness but strength. Where protecting each other matters more than protocol. Where even a cruel king can learn to be better because a little girl believed he could. He took Sarah's hand, then Myra's. Welcome to the new Northern Territories. Where everyone has a voice. Where everyone matters. Where hope isn't just allowed, it's celebrated. The crowd erupted in cheers. That night, after the celebration, after Mira was finally asleep, Sarah and Declan stood on their balcony overlooking the kingdom. I have news, Sarah said softly. Good news, I hope. I've had enough bad news to last a lifetime. The best news. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. Twins. The healer confirmed it this morning. Declan went very still. Then he was on his knees, his forehead pressed to her belly, his shoulders shaking. Declan? I never thought. His voice was thick with tears. After everything I did, everything I was, I never thought I'd get this. A family. Children who'd look at me and see a father instead of a monster. They'll see both, Sarah said honestly, running her fingers through his hair. They'll know who you were and who you became. They'll learn that people can change. That love can heal even the deepest wounds. What did I do to deserve you? You chose to be better. That's all any of us can do. He stood, pulling her into his arms, and they stayed like that for a long time. Two broken people who'd found each other, who'd built something beautiful from the ruins of pain. In her room, Mira dreamed of brothers or sisters to play with, of a kingdom where everyone smiled, of a mean king who'd learned to love. In the village, wolves whispered about the queen who'd healed their king, about the reforms that made life bearable again, about hope. And in the palace archive, a historian made a note in the official record. In the 5th year of King Declan's reign, everything changed. Not through war or conquest, but through a letter written in crayon by a 6-year-old who believed even the cruelest hearts could learn to feel again. She was right. Long live King Declan. Long live Queen Sarah. And may we never forget that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose love over fear, mercy over cruelty, and hope over despair. The Northern Territories are reborn. Epilogue, 5 years later. Mira was 11 now, and she'd just finished reading her mother's collected poems to her twin siblings, Elara and Kai, named for the sun and moon. Another one. Kai demanded. It's bedtime, Mira said with the authority of an older sister. But I'll tell you a secret instead. What secret? Elara whispered. Once upon a time, there was a mean king who forgot how to smile. Everyone was scared of him. Even himself. That's sad, Kai said. It is. But then a little girl sent him a letter. And even though he tried to stay mean, she reminded him that sad people get angry sometimes, but they don't have to stay that way forever. What happened to the king? Elara asked. Mira smiled. He learned to be happy again. He found a queen who helped him remember kindness. He had children who taught him joy. And he became the best king the Northern Territories ever had, not because he was the strongest or the scariest, but because he loved his people as much as they loved him. Is that a true story? Kai demanded. From the doorway, Declan's voice answered, every word. The twins shrieked and launched themselves at their father. He caught them easily, spinning them around while Mira laughed. Sarah appeared beside him, her hand resting on the slight swell of her belly, another pup on the way. Bedtime, she said firmly. All of you. But Mama. No buts. Even kings and queens need sleep. After the children were finally settled, Declan and Sarah retreated to their chambers. He pulled her close, his hand covering hers on her stomach. Another one, he murmured. How do you feel? Like our family keeps growing. Like our kingdom keeps healing. Like everything we survived was worth it. Do you ever regret it? Choosing me? Choosing this life? Sarah turned in his arms, cupping his face. Not for a single second. You're the man I was always meant to find. The mate my soul chose. The father my children adore. And the king our kingdom deserves. I'm still learning. We all are. That's what makes it beautiful. He kissed her then, soft, sweet, and full of the love that had saved them both. And somewhere in the palace, a new letter was being written. Not to a mean king, but from a proud daughter to the father she'd chosen. Dear Daddy. Thank you for being brave enough to change. Thank you for loving us even when you were scared. Thank you for being the best daddy in the whole kingdom. Love always. Mira. P.S. The twins are asking about getting a puppy. Just warning you. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.